Already clicked. Okay, we are live, and well, welcome guys to the second State of Star Wars live stream where we are discussing Mandalorian Season 3, unscripted, no editing, nothing like that. We're just gonna be talking about this, the latest season of Mandalorian, and share our thoughts, what we think, etc., etc. So, yep. And of course, I got with me here, well, introduce yourselves, guys, one by one. So, whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
This is the Spider-Fan Maniac. First appearance in one of these Mandalorian episodes.
Mhm. Yep. And then we got.
The greatest Star Wars collector of State of Star Wars, Captain Henson.
Yep. And of course, our one and only Macho Mandalorian is back.
Hey guys, Django Fett here. So back to review Mandalorian season 3.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, without further ado, so let's begin. So, Mando season 3. So, I guess we should start with just what we were expecting before discussing what we actually got. So, what do you guys got in terms of expectations for this one
I
before it
mean,
came out?
what I was expecting was more towards, Din Djarin's character development, since he had to actually remove his helmet to in the last season to save Grogu. I think he had to now choose between his cult's way and his own way and all that dilemma, and his meeting with the other Mandalorian tribes, like Bo-Katan, Exo Wolves. I think that would actually affected him in his philosophical outlook when it comes to Mandalorians. Wanted them to explore that, but not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as for me, when season 2 ended, I was really looking forward to, finally getting a Mandalorian show that was about the titular Mandalorian. Now that Grogu was finally gone from this show, Book of Boba Fett fucking happens. We know what happens there. And so going into season 3, it's like, well, already starting off on the wrong foot because I did not want these two back together, at least not so fucking soon. So going into it, it's like, whatever. The only reason I'm watching this is because, admittedly, I'm still interested to see where this show goes. I'm not completely, I haven't completely denounced the new canon. Probably won't, but still, I don't really care what happens in the show. And honestly, you know what? At first, I thought the whole season was going to be about Din Djarin needing to bathe in the waters or the mythical waters of Mandalore. I thought that was going to be the whole fucking season because seasons 1 and 2 taught me that they will stretch out a plot as long as they possibly can by going on multiple fucking side quests. That didn't happen. So it's like, awesome. We dealt with that in a pretty good pace. What's the plot? And so I just go through week to week. It's like, where is this even going? And then, hey, last 2 episodes, we finally get the plot of the season. And then by the end, it's like, well, that was a thing. It happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Django?
Yeah, I'm totally with Henson on this. Just I was expecting, kind of the plot of Din Djarin just being him. Didn't end up being him. It ended up being other 2 characters, Din Djarin and someone else we'll mention, which I actually did like. That was a different change than usually Din Djarin and Grogu. But I would expect that it would be something just on the whole plot of him going to the waters in Mandalore, and that was quickly resolved. And then they moved on to nothing, and like just wading through whatever, and until the very end. So I'm kind of mixed with this season, but in the end, I'm actually more hopeful for what they can do in this next season, which I really didn't expect at all. Kind of hopeful, but I'm not super hopeful for how they're going to do the next season. So we'll see. I was kind of expecting this to be kind of really bad at this point because the quality of the other TV shows have just kind of been pretty bad in my opinion. But I guess this kind of hold my interest for the next season. So we'll see.
Mhm. As for me, didn't really have much to expect. I knew that well, me and I guess also Doan and the Jungle probably expected at least maybe a brief glimpse or cameo or something from Boba Fett, given how dirty they did him in Book of Boba Fett. But no, we didn't get that. So no, instead we got more Din with Grogu and some other things, which we'll discuss very shortly. So yeah, my thoughts on this season are also on the mixed side. Just general. Like I enjoyed it, but there were issues that definitely were noticeable. So yeah.
I
So
will say this. As someone who, and I guess we'll talk about it later when we get into the nitty gritty of this season, but as someone who doesn't care about Din Djarin as a character and who couldn't give less of a damn about his relationship with Grogu, him being sidelined in this season did not bother me in the slightest. Because the person they did that with, well, is just inherently more interesting, and her plot is way more fucking interesting.
Yeah, but even with his less character, I still did notice a character regression. So I will have to mention that later.
Yeah, that's the funny thing too. It's portrayed as a good thing that he took off his helmet to see his son with his own eyes. But then we're told that no, that was a bad thing actually, and he regrets doing that.
Yeah, that is precisely the issue because in season 2, Mayfield says something amongst the lines of like sometimes you gotta abandon your core principles to do something when it becomes really problematic, and didn't notice that he must take out his helmet to register his face in the Imperial database or something to rescue Grogu, right? And then to see Grogu with his face. But now, like in this season, the first 2 episodes is literally about a plot where he's so concerned about the fact that he'll be abandoned by the other children of the Watch tribe that he wants to redeem himself. Like, what is this? Like, why are we doing this plot? I mean, didn't Din decide to not be part of this tribe anymore because he considered Grogu to be more important than the children of the Watch?
I
He
mean,
didn't know if he would ever see Grogu again. And so he decided to, for that moment, denounce, or not really denounce, but put his cultist beliefs aside because, let's face it, he's in a cult. Put those beliefs aside to see his son with his own eyes. Now that's an emotional moment. Really tugs at the heartstrings. And yet, he does, from what I remember from the Book of Boba Fett episodes, he does regret doing that. And I think there is an interesting plot there. Like, he did that because he genuinely wanted, like, that connective moment with his adoptive son. And so now he would have to deal with that, his cultist conditioning versus what would actually feel right on an emotional level. Because, seeing your loved one's face is, I would say, pretty natural and healthy thing. Keeping your face covered up the entire time, I don't think is entirely healthy, but then again, I don't know the psychological effects of that, so I don't know. The point is, there's an interesting story you can tell there. The problem is they brought them back together immediately, so Din Djarin doesn't have to deal with it, and he bathes in the waters in like what, the first 3 episodes of this season. So that plot line is just instantly resolved. Like
Yeah.
bringing those two back together and having him bathe in the waters that quickly, resolving him of all of that. Turns out all of that was fucking pointless.
I mean, it's like,
Go ahead.
what I expected was like basically Din going to the armor and saying, "Yeah, no, screw you guys, I'm leaving," or because saving my son is more important than the cult, or some dialogue like that. Because like I saw other Mandalorians and they don't wear helmets every single time, but no, there's no debates. There's no I made my decision and I'm going my own way. It's like crawling back to the cult again. Really?
Din has always been a character who follows the will of others. So I guess there's that.
Yeah.
I kind of expected more of a conflict between not only with Din Djarin and his faction, but also the other two factions. The Watchers and Bo-Katan's, I guess, X faction at that point.
One would think, especially
Yeah.
with what we got briefly in season 2.
But it was pretty resolved pretty quickly. I thought it would be much more of a just constant conflict, throughout. But I guess it was resolved pretty like 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah, that is one of the things that it is one of those story ideas that I wish they had actually done here, and I kind of was expecting, but instead we got 2 episodes that literally wasted our absolute goddamn time, and obviously have the season being pretty directionless. So we'll get into detail on to what are those 2 episodes that literally wasted our time.
I mean, there's things to mention. Like, we just only got 2 episodes, and 25% out of 8 episodes is character regression. So what Djarin did in Mandalorian season 2 is pointless.
Oh yeah,
And then,
that whole ending was pointless.
and then this Mandalorian in these planets, because in Book of Boba Fett, if you actually see, I found it really weird that the only Mandalorians were, other than Boba Fett himself, were Tar Vizsla, Paz Vizsla, the Armorer, and Jaren, all 3 of them. And then we're starting season 3, and where did all these other guys came from? Why were only 3 of you in this weird space station? Where were these other guys?
That's so true.
Like what the hell happened?
Something that I've just thought about is Book of Boba Fett. We see the actual bombing of Mandalore in that show, but we never see it in this show.
You mean the ones with the K2SO looking droids?
The scene where it's the TIE bombers bombing the domed city.
Oh, Mandalore. I see.
We get that in Book of Boba Fett, but we don't get it in this show where it would actually be relevant.
Mm.
And another minor thing, even in Disney Star Wars, it has been proven that Kel Dabe actually exists there. So I was hoping they would actually show that side of the planet, but of course not.
No. They
Yeah,
really
I suppose the entire planet looks like a fucking desert.
It does indeed. So, do you guys want to get into each episode, or just whatever comes on our minds?
Whatever comes in my mind.
Yeah,
I can't
since it's a
remember the
live
focus.
stream, might as well just
Okay,
talk about
sure.
whatever.
Well,
So
okay.
I will say this. Oh my god. I guess to start with a positive. Oh my fucking god. The battle droids looked so fucking good.
I'll give him that. Yeah.
Like they looked really fucking good. Hearing
Yeah.
the TCW battle droid voice coming out of
A
the
B1
film
battle droid.
model was kind of weird, like hearing it in the EA Battlefront 2, but still, God bless. God bless.
It seems
Yeah.
that it seems that they're getting a bit more confident from time to time to actually showcasing prequel trilogy stuff. Because remember, in the late 2010s, it was like prequel trilogy, fuck it, nobody likes it.
I mean, it's really not surprising. I mean, say what you will about Dave Filoni, but he did give us TCW.
Well, yeah,
And the
obviously.
scene where, the super battle droid literally punches Jaren, that was kind of funny.
It was funny, not gonna
Although
lie.
it was interesting, remind me, the super battle droids we see in, I think it was the season 1 flashback, those resembled more the TCW design, right?
I'm gonna check that right now.
Because these were definitely like the episode 2 and 3 models, but I think the flashback we get in the first season of Mando had them like a combination of the movie and TCW design. Like they seemed bulkier in that flashback. Regardless, it was really great seeing them again. Although that episode had the most, how do I put it? The guest stars in that episode really took me out of the fucking episode.
I mean,
Ugh.
I kind of get it, but it's freaking Christopher Lloyd. He's a legend, but the other two is a problem.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't recognize that it was Christopher Lloyd. Damn.
Emmett Brown from Back to the Future.
Yeah. Now I know, but I didn't recognize it when I saw the episode. I knew he looked familiar, but I didn't know.
But like
So-
Jack Black, I don't
Oh
know
God.
who was
Ugh.
playing. I'm not familiar with the actress playing the Queen, but in terms of like Jack Black, yeah, that took me out of it.
It did to me too. Like, I mean, I like Jack Black in a lot of stuff he's done. I mean, I like him in Kung Fu Panda. I liked him in School of Rock. Bowser in the Super Mario Brothers movie, of course. Like I like him in a lot of stuff, but in here, it just looks so blatantly like he was just there as a cameo of sorts. Like it definitely came out of nowhere. Like it was one of those where I'm like, I cannot really take my eyes from the fact that I'm seeing Jack Black. I'm not really seeing a character Jack Black's portraying. You get what I mean? Like I couldn't take off the
Yeah.
IRL stuff from my eyes. Like something
Although
like that.
I will say this in regards to Christopher Lloyd's character, him being a Count Dooku zealot was loved it.
Yeah, it was interesting because during the TCW days, the portrayal of separatists was like brainless mostly. They're all, slave owners or, war criminals. And then, we actually have one who says something like, I didn't give up when the, corrupt republic, and I didn't give up when the empire came. So there is actual positive separatist portrayal in these episodes now.
We did get some in TCW for like that one arc, but yeah, we didn't get a lot of it.
It was solved, yeah.
So in terms of connecting to the prequels, I mean, in that area, I'm easy to please. I'll always love getting callbacks and references to the prequels. That doesn't mean I like the overall product. It just means, those few elements brought joy.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to focus about is when it comes to the sequel connection, specifically episode 3 with the Dr. Pershing plot, because that is really
okay, before you get to that, the one, okay, I want to mention episode 3, the fucking worst episode of this season. Seriously, I was so bored out of my eyes.
Really? I thought it was the best episode of the season.
I was bored because I didn't care about it.
Here's the goddamn problem with episodes like this. The problem with episodes like 3 with Dr. Pershing is like the sequel trilogy was a mess of movies which didn't do any proper world building. So shows like this has to fix it. You know what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, it's band-aids for the sequel trilogy. Yeah, they are there.
These
Hell,
episodes exist for the pure purpose of explaining the state of the galaxy for the sequel trilogy.
yeah, it really felt like the episode was really
Unfortunate
just.
reality is that's necessary.
Well,
Like,
I mean, if they're gonna do it, at the very least, make a show that's entirely about that instead of shoehorning it into another show.
well, I
Because
mean,
that
here's the
episode,
thing, though. I mean, Din Jar, or this show has always been the main villain of the show has always been an Imperial.
well,
So it
yes,
connecting to the socio-political stuff makes sense. Well, it connecting somehow to the creation of the First Order makes sense.
Yeah,
yes,
but
but the thing is, Moff Gideon isn't even shown as a villain until like what episode 6, for episode 5 of this season. Like we don't even know. And Pershing, his arc was for nothing. They just dealt with him immediately in that episode. It was for nothing. It was a waste of time. It should have just went with Bo-Katan and Mando instead of just cutting it out to this random person. Like it went to
He's a
nowhere.
character from the previous seasons, and the whole point is to
Yeah,
show that
I get that.
Imperials have infiltrated the Republic.
I get that, but we didn't need to spend like 80% of the episode on that. They could have just shown it in like 5-10 minutes, and that's about it. They didn't need to spend so much time on it. I was so uninterested in seeing it because I wanted to see Mando and Bo-Katan. How they escape the time interceptors. They're supposed to be going on refuge. Okay, I want to see that. And then we're cutting out the Dr. Pershing. Okay, we're gonna get like
Well, I mean, in that
5
episode,
minutes.
we also get to know what happened to Imperials post Jedi, or I guess
La-
post Battle of Jakku, if Jakku is still the final battle place for the Galactic Civil War. The point is, there is stuff that happens
Yes,
in that
but
episode that is important for the overall story.
for the more like the overall world building and universe, because it really had not much to do with the main show. I really did not care. Like when Pershing and the other Imperials are like sitting there, are like there, sitting there like discussing that. Oh, we're now changed, and oh, I miss this and that, like miss Imperial ration and everything. I think that's where they should have just cut that portion. That's what it like. We already got it. Okay, Imperials are now working for the New Republic. Okay, and okay, there's that, and this is what's happening in the New Republic. Okay, that's fine. They should just cut it there and go back to Mando and Bo-Katan. Maybe because that would have been fine. Like, and we still would have gotten into the next episodes the female Imperial officer. Pretty much, we could have still seen her pretty much still working with Moff Gideon or something, even if Moff Gideon's arrival was out of nowhere. But like, we still could have gotten that. We didn't need to literally see all of the attempts of the Doctor trying to rebuild his lab. That was unnecessary. It went nowhere. They should have never bothered with it. They should have just
I disagree entirely.
the lab. It went nowhere. It went nowhere. They captured him, and the officer was still working was still working for the New
whole
Republic.
point was for us to see what the Doctor has been up to, see that he is genuine when he says he's trying to like make amends for the shit he did. And then the tragedy of the fact that despite doing all of this with the best of intentions, thinking that he was going to, lead to, better things, to save lives in the future, he gets screwed over by someone he thought he could trust, and his mind gets completely fucked.
I mean, I guess the whole point of the episode is like Imperial spies exist. This is why the New Republic is so incompetent and how ineffective it was during the sequel trilogy. And that's the whole point, isn't it?
It seems to be the point, which I mean, like I said, like that doesn't seem to be a bad idea. It's just that it shouldn't be in a show that literally does not like. It's all about these other characters. Now we're going to these other characters.
Yeah,
it's not like the Doctor is a completely new character. He was a character in the previous seasons.
No, I kind of understand both views, but this is a necessary sacrifice from a certain point of view because the sequel trilogy is so horribly designed that we have to sacrifice a Mandalorian show to explain what the hell is going to happen. So I understand CJG's points and Henson. While we want to mostly people want to focus on the Mandalorian and Bo-Katan's ongoing adventure, we also have to do this other purpose of dealing with the New Republic. Because why? Like I mentioned multiple times, the sequel trilogy didn't do its job, and now look what these shows have to do. So it's a necessary sacrifice.
Yeah, let's
yeah,
just move
give
on
it
from this
give it
point.
hands on that. So yeah, so the Django, I didn't hear your what you gotta say
Oh,
on.
by the way, there's like a chat. Someone's saying something.
Yeah, it's yeah, Tevia.
Trivia.
So he pretty much has. We'll get to you, Tevia, in a bit. So the Django, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just be really brief. I mean, I never thought Dr. Pershing was a very interesting character in the first place. So just to have an episode on him, I just thought it was pointless, and it just ended up being worthless in the end. And I feel like it was just setting up for something for, oh, just look out for this in the next season. But I'm watching this now, so just what's the point?
But
So
all
in
the
the
stuff
end,
that
it
was
meant
set up
nothing in the
there
sequel.
gets brought up again later on in the season.
I thought it was pointless to me.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I understand the intention. That's why I wouldn't really say it's completely useless, but there should be some kind of a balance between, right? Pershing's story needed to have an impact to Bo-Katan and Jarin's story, but it's
It didn't.
completely disconnected. I would have preferred if, the main character's plot had something to do with the New Republic and Dr. Pershing. Somehow they all connect, but it seems to lack the connection, which I find it kind of problematic.
Mm.
Yeah, as someone who doesn't really care about Din Djarin, so like spending any time away from him does not bother me in the slightest.
I guess there's that. Tevia's asking if do people even care about the sequel trilogy stuff nowadays? That's what he's asking.
The sequel trilogy still has plenty of fans.
Mm.
Not to mention, Disney Lucasfilm are not going to just ignore them or
And
ignore it.
and Tebia, sorry to say this, but we cannot forget the sequel trilogy because these things literally have connection to the sequel trilogy. Essentially, what these shows, like the Mandalorian season 3 and Mandalorian shows, and the upcoming Ahsoka show, I assume Thrawn has connection to the sequel trilogy. So yeah, we know. I think all of us here hate the sequel trilogy, right? All four of us.
Yeah.
But
No, I'm more indifferent to them at this point. But yes, I don't like the sequel
yeah,
trilogy.
let's say we all do not like the sequel trilogy, but we cannot not talk about the sequel trilogy because it's in our
Acolytus High
face.
Republic, Tevia.
Yeah, it's a totally different era of the
But like,
timeline.
here's the thing, though. It's not even just about that. Oh yeah, these shows are acknowledging the sequel trilogy, so the sequel trilogy can't be ignored. It's the fact that the films happened. Lucasfilm and Disney are not going to just ignore them for a multitude of reasons. So the best they can do, or at least the best that everyone, the other creatives can do, is to deal with it. And now I'm of the opinion that if you have a bad entry in a franchise, or bad in quotes, depending on who you ask, outright ignoring it is one of the worst things you can do because, like it or not, it happened.
Did,
And if you don't like it, the best you can do is to try to, I'd say rectify might be the right word,
it would be the
but
word, yes.
to do what you can with it and then move on.
Yeah, a bad example of that is like the Terminator series. Whenever they find it unpopular, look at Terminator Salvation. People didn't like it. You got freaking, Genesis. They didn't like Genesis. You got Dark Fate. And I'm pretty sure no one's gonna follow the plot of Dark Fate because they'll be stupid to do it. But yeah, so I mean, even though they're bad plots, you should do something like the Alien franchise. Like lesser popular entries like Alien 3 and Resurrection, they aren't ignored. Well, other than mentioning AVP movies, but
Mm.
the point is, just because it's bad doesn't mean you should ignore it. Just try to, at least find the good ideas from the bad entries to make something out of it.
I mean, it's not even just about that. It's when it comes to any franchise in regards to getting into the canon of things, or canons in some cases, you got to take the good with the bad. Now, if you want to just completely head canon your own canon and just have it be that own fun little thing of yours, then fair enough. But in regards to what's officially canon, yeah, you're going to have to accept the fact that the sequel trilogy is where all of this is leading to. Now, here's the thing. Here's the really interesting thing. So, we have multiple seasons of The Mandalorian. We know we're going to get a season 4. We have Book of Boba Fett. We're getting Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew. However many seasons those shows might have. Like, really think about it. This era, the sequel era, by the time we catch up to Force Awakens, the sequel trilogy, in the grand scheme of things, is just going to be a blip on the radar. Tons of important shit does happen in the sequel trilogy that affects a lot of things, but in the grand scheme of things, it's only going to be a blip.
Yeah.
Of course, doesn't change the fact that those movies did what they did, but again, it's all about if you like what they're doing with the Mandoverse stuff. And if you are liking it, by the time we get to the TFA, I mean, it may not change your mind on the sequel trilogy. Nothing will for me, but at the very least, it'll help them be those films will be an easier pill to swallow. At least that's what I think.
Mm.
I don't know what you mean, Tevya, when you say the Alien franchise retcons itself more than once.
I mean, technically true, because when they wrote the quote-unquote Aliens comic in the 80s and 90s before 83, they had to retcon it, so they changed it to Wilkes and Billy or something.
Yeah, they did change some of the character names, but in the grand scheme of things, the franchise did not retcon itself that much. Especially if you're only looking at the films. But that's besides the point. But yes, he brings up Alien 5 was supposed to retcon 3 and Resurrection. Would a lot of people have liked that? Sure. A lot of people would have liked that. But that would have been really, in my opinion, dumb for a multitude of reasons.
Well, I would describe what it is. It would be a bitch move.
Yeah, it would be a bitch move. Except the fact that those entries exist, like them or not, move on. They may not be what you would have done or would have wanted to have happened. Certain people wanted Alien 3 to be Aliens 2. But take the good with the bad. Recognize that good can come out of that stuff. Like, good stuff can come out of the sequel trilogy.
Oh, Tevye says that, but the Mandoverse can't connect to the sequel trilogy because we're getting Grand Admiral Thrawn.
That doesn't mean that at all.
No, it doesn't mean that it doesn't connect. It just means, who knows if Grand Admiral Thrawn is related to the regroup. I mean, the whole Imperial Remnant story is basically showing that they eventually all gathered together, uniting for the purpose of creating what becomes the future First Order. You even see Brendel Hux, General Hux's father in the show.
Yeah, it is very clear that that's what they're building up towards. And the fact that...
Sorry for interrupting, but I need to say this. There is no such thing as a Mandoverse. I know what you're saying, but this is not going to be a separate direction, right?
I think calling it the Mandoverse is just referring to the fact that, all these shows spring up and connect back to Mandalorian.
No, what I mean is that eventually all these shows exist for the purpose of one thing, filling the space between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. No matter what you want, no, they are not gonna ignore the sequels, and these things are all setting up for it. I don't
I
like
would
it.
go as
I mean, I don't like it unless they have really good world building, which I'm a fan of. But no, sequel trilogy is gonna be mentioned every time, and not literally every time, but no, you will see sequel trilogy references and connections because you know that eventually it all leads to them.
Mm.
like, I mean, hell, with what they're doing now, we can actually explain how the fuck they were able to construct Star Killer Base. Because with just TFA, it's like how they amassed these massive fleets out of fucking nowhere.
And well, there's that, and also
Will it be perfect? No. We
Okay.
can't have perfect explanations for everything, but the best they can do is explain what they can to the best of their ability so that by the time we get to the sequel trilogy, they've done what they can and then we can move on. I do believe we will reach a point when people think of the sequel era, it's going to be what we call the Mandoverse. The sequel trilogy will just be a blip.
By the way, let's move to the other episodes then. No.
yeah. So okay, we already discussed episode 3, so there's that.
Let's go to 4.
So so what episode do you guys want to tackle? The end, obviously, we'll leave it to the end. So at least we'll leave that one to the end. So what other episode do you guys want to tackle? Want to tackle the first one, second one?
Oh, we did the first 2 ones, so let's see.
Okay.
Talking about
What about the pirate?
Oh yeah, it was what, episode 4 or 5?
5.
Oh, 5.
That was
Okay.
a fun episode.
I like that. Yeah.
I like it too. So,
And you know what? From what I could tell, what was the captain's name?
The captain was oh god, that name. Gorian Shard.
Shard. From what I could tell, that was an animatronic head. And I don't know if this was done intentionally, but it was obviously an animatronic.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just thought that was fun.
But we cannot forget about the legend Ahmed Best returning.
Yes, playing his Jedi. I believe that show was called Jedi. Damn it! Because there was a game. There was a challenge game show on YouTube where he played that character.
Actually, I didn't recognize. God damn it, I didn't recognize him in the flashback with Grogu's past.
Yeah, but here's also something I need to mention. Boba Fett doesn't appear in the show for this season, but Tamara Morrison isn't. I mean, he does appear in some way.
Mhm.
Because
The
with
show
the-
I was thinking about was Jedi Temple Challenge. That was from late 2019.
Calorie
And it's like, you see, these are the kinds of character references that I like. You know, Luke Skywalker showing up in the season 2 finale, that's great, whatever. But bring a character from a YouTube game show that most people haven't watched.
Mm.
That's the kind of EU connectivity I like. Like, that's what the EU did all of the fucking time. Like, you know, taking this like obscure character, location, item, and then like bringing it back in a main source and like a more mainstream source. And plus, I mean, seeing Ahmed Best in anything always puts a smile on my face.
Yeah.
There is that, yeah. So indeed. So episode
And-
4.
But
I'm sorry.
something is kind of weird because the clones do appear and they are in credits voiced by Tamara Morrison, but the
Probably just
voice
archived audio.
is archived. It's either
I would
archived
assume so.
or it might be one of those AI voices because something doesn't sound right.
I didn't pay much attention to them. Hey, Django, what do you think in regards to the clone voices?
Yeah, I could tell it was very similar to Maura Morrison. They could have used the archive, so it's kind of hard to say, but yeah, it worked.
So
I'd
I
have to
mean,
watch the scene again, but I don't remember thinking it was
so
weird.
Boba Fett is not in the show, but Tamara Morrison's presence can be felt. Is that
You
it?
know, it is a shame too that Boba Fett wasn't here because one of my favorite aspects of season 2 was having him just not give a single damn about Mandalorian culture.
Yeah, that's the thing because I was thinking about something great. Like there's these extremist cult group, and these are the quote unquote real Mandalorians who think, only people from Mandalore can be, born a Mandalore, raised a Mandalore could be considered real Mandalorians. And then, I mean, to make this conflict even worse, you could introduce someone like Boba Fett, who literally considers every one of them, to be idiots because he doesn't care whether it's a Mandalorian or not.
Yeah, I think that kind of character like works really well here because we have two opposing ideologies and then just have this like third party who thinks it's all total bullshit and thinks it's ridiculous that they're fighting over this sort of thing.
Yeah. How much can I bet? How much can I bet that it would have been much better for Boba Fett to be with Din Djarin this season instead of Grogu? Like, I actually think it would have been more cooler,
Yeah,
and it would have opened up for some more interesting story ideas. Because in this season, Grogu is just there, just there, like that's it.
I mean,
So
this series, like the problem with this series, especially in this season, is like they don't go into the philosophical aspects or the cultural difference between these two Mandalorian groups. They
they
don't
don't.
really.
They don't. Which you think they should, given that you know that because TCW started with the pacifist Mandalorians and everything. So you think they would go more in detail as to how that started, how it went to what it is here, and everything. And but no, they just seem to like just show the Mandalorian factions there for what just as cool set pieces or just cool to show the camera. Like, is that it?
Django, you love Mandalorians. What do you think of the portrayal of Mandalorians in this season?
I'm a bit. It's a little messy how they constructed the Mandalorians here because it's like you have two different factions, and they didn't really have a conflict because I think this was like almost like a decade-long conflict that's like spans before or I think during the Clone Wars at some point.
Yeah, it's as far back as 22 BY, which is TCW. Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't really see that conflict other than just stare downs at times. And I feel like they weren't utilized to the extent that I would have seen, like where they've just I don't know. I'm kind of mixed with how they were presented in this show.
I mean, here's the whole thing. There's one group who thinks Mandalorians who remove their helmets are a bunch of heretics and not real Mandalorians. And there's this other group of Mandalorians who think those who are not born and raised in Mandalorians aren't real Mandalorians, right?
Yep.
And they do not have a conflict between these two groups. Like the best case of conflict is between Bisla and Wolves fighting when they're doing after a chess game, which is really a surface level and doesn't seem like a cultural difference, more of a personal feud between two dudes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, when you're dealing with an ideology that says this choice of yours is morally corrupt or morally evil, it's kind of hard to like work with them or live together with them. I mean, it's the same thing with real life. When you have an ideology that says X is evil just inherently. Can they really work with the people who belong in X group?
Mm,
Not
Yeah.
really.
And it's really stupid that both Armor and, Christ didn't really consider this aspect. The both just one day decides, together, all Mandalorians should unite. Welcome, all Mandalorians. We're all brothers and sisters. I don't think that is how it works.
One thing that I thought was weird, or maybe this does make sense and I'm just not thinking about it well enough. We have Bo-Katan, going into the waters to save Din from drowning. And, she gets him out and then she doesn't take off her helmet, which, fair enough, I guess. And then when the armorer points that out, she doesn't want to take off her helmet.
I mean, I don't know if that's whether she doesn't want to take the helmet or maybe she's in a more full of zealots, so she doesn't want to attract attention.
Well, that's the thing. Like, when the armorer says, like, "Oh, take off your helmet," like she's like really fucking hesitant. And before that, when the armorer asks, "Have you taken off your helmet after bathing in the waters?" Bo says no, and then the armorer is like, "Oh, you're one of us now," and Bo seems to be really happy about that.
it is
Am
on
I
the
missing something?
Well, I know that
Was it
Din.
just the fact that she saw what was that creature called?
The Minotaur.
Mythosaur?
The Mythosaur, yeah. the
Mythosaur. Like, I guess seeing that was meant to be like one of those vision of God type things.
In a way.
Like a come to Jesus moment for her.
Yeah, that's it. A come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, kind of like that. I know that Din, in what was it, episode 3, when they were riding at the end to the other clan, the Mandal clan. I know that Din warned Bo-Katan to just keep the helmet on so things can go much smoother and less troublesome. So, and this was before the armorer said, "Oh, have you taken off your helmet after bathing?" So I guess in a sense she wanted to keep it on because she was just taking Din's advice to just not cause any trouble. So maybe that was it. But yeah, after that, definitely it is on the odd side that now Bo-Katan is like definitely on the happy end now being part of this Mandalorian clan. I mean, I guess because she now is just all alone in that Mandalorian refugee in that planet. I forgot the name of the planet.
Yeah, I
the first
guess that
episode.
could be it. She finally feels like, after her group ditched her, I guess, being a part of this group feels welcoming. And hey, that's how cults get you. Am I right?
Mm. Yeah, so I guess that would be the case, yeah, because she was pretty much just alone in that palace, just doing nothing until Din and Grogu showed up, told her that they're going to the mines of Mandalore. So there is that, yeah, and of course, then Din in there got captured, and Grogu escaped and told Bo-Katan to go that he's in trouble, so they went to rescue him. So that happened.
How do people feel about the fact that instead of having a fight between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin for the Darksaber, they do the whole, oh, some other guy got the Darksaber and she defeated him, so now she gets a Darksaber. We don't have to fight for it.
I didn't like that.
I was expecting a fight. I won't lie. I was.
They're
Expecting
all
a fight.
about combat rituals all the time, fighting for every little thing. And for this, they don't fight at all. Like, I don't buy into that.
Especially because in what was it, episode 7 or 8, like one Mandalorian from the armor side and the other one from the ex Bo-Katan group. They were playing like chess or something, and then they get and then they get angry and they just fight for that shit. Like they fight for that, but the Darksaber, no. That's kind of ironic.
And I was kind of expecting at least someone to say Sukhoi Gar, but I'm expecting too much.
Yeah, There's that too. Have they ever spoken the Manda language
No,
in Disney
no. I
Star Wars?
mean, that's the point. None of these characters speak Mandoa in any of the seasons.
No.
They all speak Basic.
Mm.
I
Now,
mean,
you
I
see,
know.
that would be a cool way to differentiate between the cult and
I mean, I know Dave Filoni's a normie, but I didn't know he was this bad.
I mean, Favreau is the one who's writing all of this.
Isn't Filoni also supposed to also be in the co-writing, co-directing chair?
I mean, he's one of the executive producers, but Favreau is the one who's writing it.
Let me check. Oh,
And also,
okay.
considering the fact that Filoni's dealing with Ahsoka right now, I don't know how involved he was with this season.
Okay, I'm checking the credits, and yeah, it seems that it seems that Favreau wrote most of them. There are one or two episodes actually that were co-written by the Filoni, like John Favreau and Filoni wrote them, and those two episodes are of course they're episode 4 and episode 7. Those are the ones
Maybe
they
that's like,
Filoni.
what are we talking about when it comes to Mandalorian language? So, in both the EU and Disney canon, the Mandalorians speak a language called Mandoa, which is the Mandalorian language. Well, now, unfortunately, for a show that calls The Mandalorian, we do not have any characters that spoke or speak the language of the Mandalorians.
If you want to see more info on the Mandalorian language, or at least from the previous Star Wars timeline, just read the Republic Commando books.
You would think they would use like an infusion of Mandalorian and Basic, but they don't even attempt that. Like just like a little, like 1 or 2 words.
I mean, that's a major problem, I think, because, like, how are you calling yourself a show about Mandalorians yet they don't speak the language?
They just wore the armor.
Yeah.
That seems to be it.
These people are worse than Jodo Cass, in my opinion. At least he acknowledged the fact that he isn't a Mandalorian, but these people are basically pretenders.
Damn, that might be fighting words. I think, I don't know.
Wait, what do you mean you read Republic Commando Order 66 and found it confusing?
Did you at least read the 3 previous books? Oh, we'll see what Talia says there. But yeah. So wait. So apparently, oh yeah. So the Mando language is indeed a thing in Disney Star Wars, but for some reason it was only it's only appeared in TCW Rebels 3 episodes of Mandalorian, but only in written form. All of them in written form. Not a single character has even spoken it. I guess maybe. Oh, it seems to be like in Book of Boba Fett chapter 5. Somebody spoke it, but that's about it.
Well, chapter 5 was the Mandalorian episode. So
I guess there is that.
I wanted to talk about a certain short segment in episode 6 for this episode. What I found it interesting is like there's like a Koran pirate captain and a Mon Calamari prince having this romance. In the surface, it kind of looks weird, but at least someone did do their proper research, because the Koran prince's father does not like the fact that his son is having a romantic relationship with a Koran, because if you know, Korans and Mon Calamaris do not have a good relationship.
They've never had one.
if you've at least seen TCW, you'll have seen that conflict in action.
It's similar like the Book of Boba Fett, where you know Crescenton does not like Trandoshans. They don't literally say that, but if you have the information in your head, like Wookiees and Trandoshans cannot stand each other, like it is really impactful. If you have
Yeah,
that.
you gotta love those instances where they know when to not like point something out. They just let what's happening on screen speak for itself. And honestly, you know what? I would have followed those 2 characters. I was invested in their romance.
I mean, some people hated it, but if you know the conflict between the Korans and the Mon Calamari, like you could feel bad for how this relationship eventually ended.
Not to mention, it does establish what Bo's Mandalorians have been doing since they left her. So
Yeah, that's the one thing that's definitely keeping it from being completely filler. Because I think people don't seem to like it because it just happens quickly and there's not much that happen in it. That's probably what it is.
I mean, plus it did give us some interesting world building too.
And
Like we have
But
the captain swimming around in that tank before needing to get out of it and talk.
mm.
but speaking of that, here comes the episode where we have to deal with three celebrities.
Oh god, episode 6.
One of them is good, but the two, and they're questionable.
Yeah,
At the
episode
very least, they
6.
weren't the main focus.
Think
That's like the best I can. That's like the most positive. That's the best thing I can say about their inclusion.
is the yeah. So this episode. Okay, so I'll let you, the Django, say your thoughts on episode 6 before I say mine.
So I was expecting a little bit more with the robots and the plot with them, but they actually just go nowhere with that. I thought they would kind of go with like sympathize with the robots a lot more, and or have this kind of revolving plot where they have them having this conflict, civil war between them and their owners in a way. But they actually go to something very what I mean with the Christopher Lloyd um, type with the separatist plot. And I thought they would kind of have their own mind in their own way. But it just, I don't know. I expected a little bit more. And then the celebrities were distracting. And I just kind of wanted them just to go to where, what's his name? Wolf is there.
Yeah,
And then Bo Katan could fight him. And, that was cool when that happened. But it's just like this other subplot, which means nothing in the end. Like it was so distracting. Like I just kind of wanted to go back to the main plot line.
It is interesting that, at least for me, this felt like classic Mandalorian. You have a main goal in mind. You have a main goal to get to, but instead of just going there, we need to do this side quest and then continue on the main journey.
I guess it is.
Like this was classic Mandalorian, and of course, I was not a fan of the constant side quests in the previous seasons. But the fact that this focused on prequel stuff is like the only thing that like really kept me engaged. And the droid stuff, fearing that, if things keep happening, that the droids will be like, killed.
Sent to the scrap.
Was interesting, but that's not the focus, so we don't really get more on that.
The prequel and the separatist part with Christopher Lloyd is indeed interesting because from his perspective, it's like the war between the Republic and separatists have never ended because he's essentially thinking he fought against the Republic, and the Republic it became the Empire, and the Jack Black's character is essentially he thinks he's fighting the same fight, right? He's a diehard separatist.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, even TCW forgot to do this, but there's a reason why so many systems seceded. That's the word, right? Seceded. So many systems left the Republic because it was corrupt. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of bad, corrupt shit going on. And of course, a lot of powerful individuals took advantage of that. Leads of or heads of corporations and such. But still, many systems left because they wanted to leave that corruption. So to have a character who's like, yeah, fuck the system, it screwed people over, and I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, because what he seems is like, it doesn't matter, right? The Republic, the Empire, or this current new Republic where they're having these quote-unquote rehabilitated Imperials, he's essentially, they're all the same. And I've been fighting the same war since. I wish they kind of explored it more, but I think that was an interesting aspect.
I'll give credit to this episode. At least we were seeing this subplot from the perspective of Din Djarin and Bo-Katan compared to episode 3, where they were nowhere to be seen for like 80% of it. So I'll give it credit on that. But I still think that it was just a side quest, and it definitely felt at times felt it was interesting idea, but it definitely was just distracted from the main plot. And I definitely wanted to see that fight between Bo-Katan and Mando with the other faction, like see how they're going to recruit them. Because I thought, okay, I think it would have made more sense if maybe they actually, when they arrived to the planet, they did talk to the Axe Wolves, but the Axe Wolves were like, we can't really do anything right now. So even if we fight or whatever, we can't really do anything. We're dealing with these planetary issues. So until this is solved, we're not moving anywhere. So if at least that would have been there instead of just the government in the planet saying like, oh no, you can't talk to these guys because they're like they're on, I don't remember what was the reason, but basically I said they were like, oh, they're just contracted there, so they just stay there, can't talk to them. So we want you to deal with this issue first before we can even make a meeting, set up a meeting with you and the Mando mercs. I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, so what's the problem? And oh, we're dealing with these droids that are like malfunctioning and everything. And they asked, why don't you just shut them off? And like, oh, because the citizens don't want to shut them off. They become too dependent with droids.
I mean,
And
yeah, but
Very wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
but what I was expecting, like Django mentioned, is like I was actually thinking that this was a plot about the droids getting tired of their organic masters, meat bag, as I said, and they're trying to rebel against it because and oftentimes there's like this whole plot about droids sentience and their treatment in the Star Wars galaxy is not really good. But no, we can't do really interesting philosophical topics like that because I guess we don't have time for that. Or what?
it would have
I will say this, even though it is cheap to not give us the Bo-Katan Din Djarin fight, at the very least, the fight between her and Wolf was pretty good.
at least that. Yeah, I'll give it credit on that. So there is that. But yeah, episode 6, I think not the worst, but I do think that there could have been ways that they could have made at least the subplot feel less fillery. There could have been ways, but at
I will
least
say
it
this at
was an
least.
interesting one, kinda.
Yeah, I will say this at least. Even though the plot itself was a side quest, at the very least, we did get there was world building here. It wasn't completely pointless. Seeing a new planet, seeing how it operates, seeing what at least some ex Imperials are up to post Galactic Civil War, seeing battle droids still kicking even after 20 years, well, nearly 30 years at this point.
Yeah, it's almost nearly 30. Eh, it was fine. So yeah, it had issues. So there's that. Now episode 7 and 8. So this is where the real, well, supposedly the real shit starts. The big battle to take over Mandalore.
The
So
plot of the entire season finally happens in the
But
last 2 episodes.
before any of the discussion, I gotta be real with you people, and I have to say, Moff Gideon is not a good antagonist.
God, okay, I forgot about Moff Gideon. Okay, so well, I do want to talk about Moff Gideon. So shall we get on to what happens in the episodes, or we just go ahead and discuss it
No,
all?
no, no, let's see. But we gotta talk about certain world building aspect in the beginning because there are some important key characters in the Star Wars universe appearing at the beginning, right?
Yeah, I
The
guess.
List them out.
Protocol Shadow Counselor, and there's two interesting figures, and one particular Imperial officer being mentioned, but one of them is Brendel Hux. Now, in case you didn't know, because it wasn't said in the sequel trilogy, Brendel Hux is the father of Armitage Hux, also known as General Hux, in the sequel trilogy. Now, as I said, this is the reason why we cannot ignore the sequel trilogy.
Hux is the main First Order guy we see in the sequel trilogy. He's the one with, well, he's the ginger and the one who gives that Nazi speech in Force Awakens.
It's portrayed by the actor that portrayed one of he also portrayed one character in the Harry Potter movies.
One of the Weasleys.
Yeah, one of the Weasleys.
And if you actually look at the uniform, other than Captain Pelion, every single one of them are wearing that black outfit, which looks like those First Order officer outfits.
Oh, speaking of the Shadow Council, so I just found out right now that apparently the Shadow Council has been a thing since Aftermath Life Death. So
That
I guess
doesn't surprise me. Out of all the novels, they seem to get most of their. They seem to be. They get a lot of stuff from Aftermath.
Yeah, the Aftermath trilogy.
Because I haven't read the Aftermath trilogy, but from what I've heard, that did do plenty of setup for at least the formation of the First Order.
Yeah,
I think that's where Hux's dad comes from.
Yeah, he was mentioned in there. So basically, it's a lot of backstory and setup for the sequels. The
but-
issue with those books was simply the writing itself.
But here's the weird thing, because Hux's father looks kind of really young, because according to the information I know, this guy was supposedly a officer during the Clone Wars, which will make him in his at least early to mid 40s. And then this guy, the actual actor, is played by some guy in his 30s, so like he looks too young to be, what his actual age is.
I mean, of course, I can't say. Well, you mean to tell me that a Star Wars show ignores the expanded material? Color me shocked.
Well, and not to mention, though, this is the same timeline that liked having very well, not so very, but definitely much older looking Hayden Christensen in the flashback. That's supposed to be pre Battle of Geonosis. So, if you ask me, this is not really too surprising to me. It's just part of the course.
Yes, Tevia, we did not forget about Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is lingering presence since 2018 with Rebel Season 4, which was.
Isn't this like the third time there are like they're like hyping up his return? Like there was 2018, as you mentioned, Owen. Then there was Mando season 2, if I recall, when
the Ahsoka episode.
And then there was a couple Timothy Zahn novels, which who knows if Dave Filoni would even acknowledge its existence.
Yeah, I don't know. I believe Zahn is being consulted for the Ahsoka series. But, we'll see if that means anything. Yeah. But, I do think bringing up Thrawn in the context of the Shadow Council is interesting because, I do like the idea that, some of them do believe Thrawn is coming back, and then you got someone like Gideon who thinks it's absolute fucking bullshit. I like those kinds of conflicts there because these guys want a return to an Imperial controlled galaxy, but it's all about who the hell is going to do it.
There's that, yeah.
And of course, that's a reason to bring back old Chief Palpatine.
Oh God! Christ, that's it. Okay, so
we find out later. I mean, we'd already been seeing it in the past seasons, but here they go into a little more detail on it. Gideon's thing with cloning, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Hux's dad is also like obsessed with cloning, right? That's what they brought up here.
Was he obsessed with cloning?
There was a Project Necromancer something mentioned, but
yeah, that was I think Hux's dad is dealing with Project Necromancer, which I think it's fair to say that's the means of bringing back old Palps.
And then there was also mentioning, like Gideon asking Hux Senior, let's say, to make it simple, Hawk Senior bought Praetorian guards, which there's something to talk about them later.
Hmm.
And
Project
yeah,
Necromancer is, well, we don't have
Uh,
definitive details on it, but
this is
I
the
think
first time
yeah, this is
they
something they made.
this is the first time they ever mention it or even introduce like at all in the
yeah,
entirety
it's
of the
something
timeline.
that the Shadow Council brings up, and I think it's fair to say it has to do with bringing back Palpatine.
Well, we'll have
Yeah.
to see, but so for right now,
Well, I mean,
this is
that's
just
clearly
completely
where
new.
this is all leaning towards.
I
Like all
mean-
the shit with cloning. I mean, we're getting it in Bad Batch,
And I don't know,
and focusing on cloning throughout this series.
the whole necro thing means it's actually dead, right? Right.
Necro means
definition,
dead. Yeah.
So it has to do something with Palpatine, that's for sure.
I
Yeah.
guess there is that. What was I gonna say? So yeah, and of course there's Moff Gideon in there, so because he's back.
And
mhm.
he's still the same. I talk in a fancy accent, but I do not actually have any personality mode.
I mean, okay, no respect to Giancarlo Esposito because I actually think he's a great actor. I mean, he's
Yeah, I
done.
mean, he is, but
Yeah, he's done great stuff. But I do think that his out of nowhere like appearance here in this season, because what in the first half they said like, oh, Gideon is like sent to trial or maybe he just died or something. Like it's until what episode 5 where they start to set up or hint that he actually escaped trial and is up to no good. Like until halfway to the season.
He doesn't show up until way too late into the
But-
season.
I mean, but it was expected because the actor did state that he would return to season 3. So his return wasn't unexpected. It was gonna happen at some time.
It's
I
just
mean,
the
that-
fact
they
that
put
they
him
took
out
way
there.
too long to finally have the main plot of the season happen.
Yeah. Plus, well, I mean, a sense, unless he said he was going to be back in a major role. If he did say major role, then okay, I'll give it that. But if he just said he would be back, then that could have been anything. Could have been a cameo. Could have been a flashback. Could have been whatever. So I don't know when when an actor says something like that. I just think I don't know. That's not 100% confirmed that he's gonna literally come back out of nowhere or something like that. So
The
there's
point is, he's the main villain of the series, so he should have been in more of the season.
it should have been there since the beginning. Hell, even setting up him pretty much just escaped custody, which they didn't set up
Like,
until episode 5.
The whole plot of this season is Mandalorians reclaiming Mandalore. We should have seen more of what Gideon was doing.
Mhm.
Because we don't get any of that until basically the last minute.
The last 2 episodes, and yeah, okay. In regards to Gideon, so Gideon, what he's been doing all this time that we didn't know until we got to episode 7 was that he was sick. Was in the case of Mandalore, he straight up created a secret Imperial base there, where he's just using the best car of the planet to create Mandalorian like armor for himself and his troopers. And on top of that, he's also making force sensitive clones of himself by trying to basically clone himself and use Jedi DNA or force sensitive DNA and infuse them together to create better versions of himself. So that's what he basically has been doing all this time, and we didn't know about it until literally episode 7. There was no setups or hints.
I forgot about
anything.
the clone part.
It's because they literally kill off the clones before they fight Gideon.
Yeah.
It was just there for the sake of it.
I mean, although there are theories saying that the guy who and Gideon didn't actually die, and it was actually his clones, or maybe
All of them died.
or Gideon's clone, unknown clone that was never seen in the show, would appear to, have revenge for his progenitor or something. I don't understand.
I mean, quite frankly, even though with the way it's portrayed here, they could easily say, oh, Gideon didn't die from that explosion because we never did find a fucking body. That's always fun.
Well,
But
there
it's
is
like,
that.
I don't want him to come back because
Me
I
neither.
think they've done all they can with him, at least as the. I don't want him to come back, but if he is to come back, I really don't want him to be the main
I
villain.
mean, but the problem with Gideon is like there's no real character other than the fact that he was an ex-ISB and he was a mob and like whatever, right? Like I need to know his backstory, but he doesn't really have anything.
I will say this: I was pretty happy that he called out the whole Darksaber lore for being
Bullshit.
dumb.
Well, there is that.
Because
yeah.
anytime somebody calls like religious superstition dumb, always makes me happy because it's
Do
like
I have a question to you guys. So like, how is it that until now, the end of season 3, now we know that now Gideon is like actually deploying Mandalorian armored soldiers, and why not use them much before? He could have had a lot of advantages with that, and especially using that armor himself, especially against Mando and others, the end of season 2. And why until now we know that he's cloning himself? And like why all this until right now? Why couldn't there have been some setups or some references to it much earlier?
so like
came out
him
of nowhere.
keeping all of this like an Imperial base on Mandalore on the down low makes sense. Drawing attention to that would be really fucking dumb. But and this is the problem though. The entire plot of season 3 is relegated to the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
The reclaiming of Mandalore, like actually getting on the planet and fighting for it, should have been the entire season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why it felt so out of nowhere when I saw not only Gideon come back, but also seeing his entire base and all of that at the very end. Like it definitely felt on the either rush side for writing, or more like they just like they had this great idea, but they didn't know how to expand it into an entire season, so they just put it at the end, and then they put plenty of directionless filler or directionless stuff in between the beginning and the end. Like that's what it feels like.
And before we forget it, it might not be a really big deal, but can we talk about the Praetorian Guards?
Oh god, Praetorian Guards. Oh god, the Praetorian Guards.
Another
Okay.
connection to the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, this is why I keep saying it. You can't avoid it. They keep bringing it up.
I mean, I don't care if they show up here, if they're referencing sequel trilogy. Like at this point, whatever, if they're referencing sequel trilogy. But the fact that these Praetorian Guards are still just as useless at their jobs as they were in the sequels is like, these morons can't really defeat anybody. Like they couldn't defeat a nobody and a Jedi Knight. 6 of them couldn't defeat a nobody and a Jedi Knight in episode 8.
Well, they did defeat Jon Favreau.
I mean, some idiots on the website are saying, "Wow, they've now made the, Praetorian Guards badass." What do you mean badass? Still incompetent.
These idiots couldn't even defeat a single Mandalorian mercenary and a baby Jedi apprentice.
He's not even a Jedi. He's barely a youngling.
Exactly. Like these guys are fucking useless. They're badass, or like they're useless. The job, like fucking useless.
Tevia, yes, one stormtrooper can't beat a Jedi, but these Praetorian Guards have clearly been trained to fight Force users.
Oh, you want
not to mention Praetorian Guard. These are the same Praetorian Guards that are supposed to be personally protecting Snoke, the leader of the First Order.
Yes, so the Praetorian Guards didn't do anything in the original trilogy, but what's your point, though?
I mean, you want to know, it's not the Praetorian Guards, but you want to know about how badass, Royal Guards, the Red Guards are? A good example is Crimson Empire. You got to read that.
Yeah, Crimson Empire.
Or hell, looking at something like Force Unleashed, where one of those, granted, what was that, like a lobotomized Jedi or something? That's what they were in Force Unleashed. Well, I mean, the point is, we had one of those guys being able to take on Star Killer.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Why
so
can't the same apply with these guys?
I mean, here's the point. If you are, no one just becomes the bodyguard of the Emperor or Snoke. You gotta be really, really talented with your martial arts to become something to protect the leader of an empire, right?
Yeah, you have to be really goddamn good. Like, imagine if just a random stormtrooper suddenly got the the permission and the big job to literally protect the goddamn emperor, and then he literally just dies in the first fucking blast of fire.
Yeah, this is the reason why why I cannot stand these Praetorian guards is because you gotta be really, really talented in your combat skills to protect someone like Snoke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, the Praetorian Guards, they're just as fucking useless at their job as they were in the sequels.
I mean, I
so
suppose
great.
I can at least say this about the guards here compared to the ones we see in Last Jedi. From at least from what I could tell, none of them were just like standing in place waiting for their cue. They
Well,
were
there's
always
that.
on the move trying to attack.
But
Well, there's
the
that.
fact that they were dealing with a force sensitive, which wasn't even a youngling, to be precise, and a non-force sensitive with just a gun, and then they were this incompetent, just makes me think. I can't really, view them as anything more
They're a
than
joke.
yeah.
At the very least, they were able to kill one person. That's more than we can say for the guards in Last Jedi.
That accomplished a lot.
Hmm.
And that
They're
was like the only other Mandalorian in the cult that had any kind of character aside from the armorer.
hmm
I do, it is frustrating that there is so much emphasis put on Mandalorians as a group in this series, and yet we barely take time to learn about most of them. Like, most of them are just nameless
name
Mandos.
nameless mercenaries. You could even say that.
It's like, Bo's group. I mean, yeah, they take off their helmets, but at least that makes them more unique. Because, yeah, sure, having different colored masks, sure, that's
And
unique.
armors.
But all these masks look the fucking same.
Oh, speaking of same, there's literally in one of the shots like some Mandalorians that look like two Jango Fett's.
Well, that's something. So there's that. The Django. So what do you
I
think
think
about it? Oh,
my thing too is like I think this has been discontinued in the EU and stuff, but like I remember back in the Mandalorian Wars and stuff, the Mandalorians are about infusing other cultures and aliens. So it wasn't just, you know, humans. They actually didn't start off as humans. They were started off as a different race.
Tongs.
Tongs, yes. And then, later on it was humans and a bunch of other races. So my thing is like, why have the other races been forgotten and not been infused in the thousands of years then? Because, to be frank, I mean, not only in this show that it's just like all humans, but also in the legends, that's also been not there as well. It's just been all humans.
Well, I mean,
well,
that's just a Star Wars problem in general. Their emphasis on humans as like the main species above every other species.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was worse in TCW when it comes to the Mandalorians because they
they were
were
all
all
human.
blonde hair, blue eyes. Like,
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
they,
at least with that, it makes sense in regards to the plot of TCW. But with here, though, we have this cult who does, adopt and seems to mostly keep their numbers up through adoption. And yet, as far as we know, granted, none of them have removed their masks. So we might have like I don't know, some humanoid aliens, but we have no reason to believe that, considering everything we've seen of Mandalorians up until this point have been strictly humans.
I know it seems that the Mandalorian culture that we see here, like it seems like they are trying to make them similar to the Mandalorians from the Hispanic universe, but they do it in a half-assed way. Like they take some things, but they don't take others. Like the not removing the armor stuff. Like yeah, that is one thing from the WrestleNaria from the Hispanic universe, that you always have to wear the armor and everything. But they go with that, and I guess defending oneself in the army and raising your children as Mandalorians and contributing to clans warfare. But speaking the language, it's not there. And when Mandalore rallies to the cause, also doesn't seem to be there, at least not entirely. So it's like they take some things, but they don't take others. Like they're half-assing it.
Tevya asks, weren't Mandalorians always mercenaries and bounty hunters in the old EU?
The Django, you're the one that knows that.
They didn't start off as just mercenaries and bounty hunters. I mean, they started off as a conqueror race. They were like the Neo Crusaders and such. So they were constantly conquering and, incorporating different aliens and stuff into, their culture. And until they were beaten by the Republic and became disjointed, then you see them become mercenaries and bounty hunters and kind of doing whatever. You never see them united in that similar way that they were back in the old EU era.
Until New Jedi Order, that is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, not all Mandalorians were mercenaries. Some of them live, let's say, a quote-unquote normal life. After all, they live in the planet Mandalore, right?
Yeah.
They can't always go around shooting their own kind in their own planet because that wouldn't make any sense.
The thing
I
is,
mean, Jango Fett's father was a farmer, so
He was a journeyman protector of Concord Dawn.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then he wanted to live his life as a farmer and stuff. So yeah.
the thing is that Mandalorian is trying to take aspects of that old Mandalorian, the EU Mandalorians. The thing is, we don't have those thousands of years of the Mandalorians being the Neo Crusaders. We have the pacifist Mandalorians with TCW, so we don't have what happened before that, and we don't have yet the WrestleNaria established. So
Well, I mean, in TCW, we did have the Death Watch talking about wanting to bring Mandalore back to the old ways.
Well, there's
Yeah,
that, but
but
what I mean
he's
is
a-
that we haven't seen like what happened before TCW, like why they became these two groups. And we know that because we know that they tried to explain it about for the EU side, but Disney Star Wars, we've not seen it yet.
But here's a problem with the Death Watch, to be precise. It's like, I don't think Dave Filoni really understand what the Death Watch is, because no part of the population, when it comes to Mandalore, like the Death Watch, because they were basically considered barbarians, even by the Mandalorians who were active in combat. Jango Fett's factions certainly didn't like them.
Yeah, didn't they rape Jango Fett's sister?
I mean, it's kind of complicated. I don't remember it was that. It was more of she had a Stockholm syndrome after all.
Yeah, I think she was like shocked over the events of what happened to her family, and she just kind of like was mentally not there anymore.
So, I mean, this is the foundation of the Mandalorians in Disney Star Wars is broken because it was already built on Dave Filoni and maybe George Lucas's incorrect interpretation of the Mandalorians.
Although it was said in a behind the scenes featurette for season 2 that at least when they were doing TCW back in the day, all of the lore regarding the Mandalorians was still valid. So make of that what you will.
Which only
So
which
I would
only-
assume that they're basically keeping that mindset with this series, that for the most part, the stuff we see in the EU is still the case.
but
We just haven't seen most of it yet.
yeah, that's
But that's
Ba-
just my best guess, considering how they treated EU Mandalorian stuff for TCW.
Yeah, even if it is true that they are doing Mandalorian stuff nowadays with that mindset, and also with TCW, like yeah, like you had all that media, but that media is already discarded. Like it's not canon for this timeline, so you can't really use that media before unless you're gonna recreate it yourself or remake it for this new timeline. So until they do that, all this stuff that we're seeing here is just half-assed attempts at making Mandalorians, at least EU Mandalorians. Like they're half-assed attempts.
It is certainly funny that for a cult to be so adamant about the way, why don't they speak their own fucking language?
Because it does well, no, it does exist, just that for some reason they don't speak it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, though. Like, yeah, it's in writing.
I mean,
But then
because
it's like, why don't they speak it? Since they're all about going to the way.
I mean, isn't it obvious? Because the show is made by normies. We gotta be honest with it. These people don't know anything.
They know enough to have the written language. I'm sure it's just a case of, oh, well, general audiences can't relate to somebody speaking a foreign language.
Well, are they able to read subtitles?
I mean, that's just my best guess. I mean, there's a reason why so many there's a reason why when you have a foreign show, and instead of just keeping the language and having it subtitled, the ones who are distributing it in the other country decides to dub it, because apparently there are people who, one, won't read subtitles. That's a big thing. There's a reason why so many people watch dubs for foreign content.
Anime in particular.
And also, I'm sure another thing too is speaking English, basically, is far easier than having these actors learn to speak an alien language and having it sound natural.
I got a kind of answer to Tebia. I'm assuming you're referencing by the Klingons with their Klingon language by saying this ain't Star Trek. Well, the thing is, like, unlike other people, this is not trying to sound elitist, we actually read books, right? We know lores about more than... I'm pretty confident that we know more about Mandalorians than the people writing this show, right?
I mean, the thing with the Klingons is that, while there are many, many, many instances of us seeing them speak Klingon, we don't have that for like an entire fucking show. We don't have Klingons as the main characters speaking Klingon for the entire show. This is what you would think a show about these particular Mandalorians would have. And quite frankly, I think that would be an awesome way to do it. But for the reasons I pointed out before, many people don't like to read subtitles, so that would already alienate a ton of the general audience. And also the time and effort it would take to have all of these different actors learn to speak this alien language and have it sound natural and have that be most of their lines.
I mean, if you ask me, one easy way to implement the Mando language in the Mandalorian show without really, having them to learn the entire language and everything, all they had to do is just say this quote in Mando. Like, say, this is the way in the Mando language. That's all they had to do. It would have been fine. It would have been a catchphrase, and when translated, it says, "This is the way." It would have been
Or,
easy.
or at least say Sukoigar when they see each other, right? And that's a
There's
simple
that.
thing.
There's that too. Yeah, like they don't have to speak the entire language. At least not always. They just a few words, just a quick quote,
Or Nurbot as brother.
yeah, they could get creative. They don't.
In the
With,
EU, at least in the stuff like video games where you would have voice acting, when you have Mandalorians in those sources, how often do they speak in Mandoa?
I mean, that's the thing because they speak in basic, but mostly around when there's outsiders. Or the book says, quote unquote, it's written in English, but they're actually speaking basic.
the Django. What times have you seen in the EU Mandalorian speaking Mandoa?
Mainly Republic Commando. I can't think
Mainly
of anything
Republic-
else.
Okay.
Didn't Karen Travis basically create the language?
She did create a big alphabet, yeah, and the Resonara, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, her books were a lot of it was creating the language on the go. So I mean, she did a great
So
job.
in sources,
Go ahead.
so in sources before her Republic Commando novels, did they not have a language to themselves?
They had hints of a Mandalorian language prior to the Republic Commando books. Most notably, you can see it with the Republic Commando introduction song, which actually, Boldy on, which actually was one of the inspirations for Karen Travis creating the alphabet, the entire Mandoa alphabet. So there were sources prior to Republic Commando books that did have at least say there does exist a Mandalorian language. It's just that we didn't fully get it until Karen Travis pretty much completely wrote the entire
and
alphabet and actually implemented it and completely.
oh no. There are examples in KOTOR, basically an NPC dialogue basically saying, if it was not for the Republic, you'll be speaking Mandalorian, indicating there was a Mandalorian language.
Yeah,
They just never speak it.
yeah, until the Republic Commando books.
Tevye is also saying that he doesn't see Mandalorian speaking Mandoa in SWOTOR. I haven't
for this
seen a lot of Mandalorians in SWOTOR, but that would make sense, yeah.
For we would need King here, so he could tell us more on that.
Although, of course, the thing with SWOTOR is that you have plenty of NPCs that speak in their alien languages, so don't know why the hell, unless Mandoa is a language that like most people don't know.
That would be the case, because which non-Mandalorians have even spoken or tried to speak Mandoa or even heard of
Revan is
it?
an example.
Well, okay, well, I guess Revan would be the only one.
Because
which
like
other
in
ones?
something like SWOTOR, you have all these different alien species speaking their own languages, and you as the main character can just understand all of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not more of a they need to speak it all the time, now thinking about it, but they need to speak it at some point, right?
I mean, if their culture is so important to them, I would think that we should see them speak their language more often than we do. Like, obviously, in a case of like a book or a comic, when, yeah, have it be in English because we need to understand it. But in a visual medium, when you can have like subtitles or something, have them speak it more. Show us that, their language like means a lot to them. Otherwise, why even give them a language if you're not going to do anything with it?
Yeah.
And even TCW acknowledges the fact that the language does exist, because I think Duchess Satine was talking to an assassin.
Yeah, the sources in Disney Star Wars pretty much say, yeah, the Mandalorian language thing is TCW, some Rebels one episode, and of course Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett in one episode.
All right, let's go to the other plots we've been dragging on this point for a long time.
Well, in regards to the ending of the last 2 episodes. So, what do you guys think of the whole battle? The whole battle
Well,
of
the
Mandalore.
Darksaber's destroyed.
I forgot about that.
I mean, to me, the Darksaber seems more like an excuse to somehow put a lightsaber in a Star Wars show.
That's not about Jedi's or Force.
I mean, to be fair, since it was so heavily connected to Mandalorian, or to the Mandalorians in TCW and Rebels, it did make sense to bring it back here.
Yeah, it makes sense. So
At least with the plot they were having involving, like, you know, reclaiming Mandalore, getting a new leader of Mandalore.
But I mean, it's kind of sad to see it's destroyed, but because it was such a unique
Color.
shaped lightsaber and a color.
yeah, indeed.
Unique shape, cool color, cool sound effect. So now they're going to need a new means of finding. Oh, God, I hate the fact that the leader of the whole group is also the name of the fucking planet. That's annoying. They'll have to find a new Mandalore.
Well, that's gonna be something. So,
Well, then
yeah,
again, I guess it's just going to be Bo-Katan.
likely, yeah. So yeah,
But now, like, future generations will need like a new. Well, I guess it'll just be combat like it was in TCW. But
there
I
is
mean,
that.
the Darksaber was always just like a trophy, basically, just a visual indicator that I am indeed Mandalore.
And that I have this cool weapon. That
I
we
mean,
use
I
for
don't know,
Jedi.
but I didn't think it was a representation of, you know, being the leader of the Mandalorians. I thought Darksaber was basically, you know, pre-Bisla bragging to the Jedi, like, my ancestors went to your temple to steal this a long time ago. Like, blah, 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 blah.
I guess
Look at
it
how
was.
awesome.
Well, I mean, when we get
dangerous
to
we are.
like Maul killing Pre Vizsla and taking the Darksaber, when we get to Rebels, and the Darksaber is very fucking important to like uniting the Mandalorians, and then getting to this season, it is a God, what's the word? It's a symbol. But, you know, now that it's destroyed, I don't know, it feels really fucking weird with how important it was to new canon Mandalorian stuff. Basically was destroyed without much fanfare, at least. That's how it felt to me.
Wasn't it like there was a mention where like the Darksaber doesn't like mean anything for the Mandalorians anymore, and that they don't need it? They just need the people is what it matters, or something like
It's
that.
Gideon who mentioned it, if I recall.
Yeah, like you would think it would be Bo-Katan that would mention it, but it's so infused with them that they have to. Like he brings it up of all people.
I mean, Gideon, from what I remember, he talked about it as though believing in the Darksaber was ridiculous. But I do think that Bo-Katan should have been the one to learn for herself that, yeah, no, we don't need the Darksaber. We just need each other because, you know, real superpower of teamwork.
The power of friendship defeats everything. What is this, Japanese animation?
Well, Henson was referencing a game from a Japanese company, so so there is that.
I mean, you know what? I mean, I will say this, thinking of the future of the sequel era. It'll be interesting to see what role the Mandalorians play moving forward, since now we're going to have to deal with them rebuilding their entire society. What does that mean moving forward? Because, you know, when we eventually reach the First Order, taking over the galaxy for a single fucking year, what were the Mandalorians doing?
Well, we know one. Oh, well, okay. It's not about the Mandalorians. So, in regards to the Mandalorians, who knows? Because what in the sequel trilogy era, I'm not talking about pre. I'm not talking about 4 ABY to 25 ABY, wherever it is. I'm talking about what is it, 25 ABY to 35 ABY, basically like 20, 30 years after Return of the Jedi. Has there ever been any mentions or anything regarding were any Mandalorians or what they're doing, or has there even seen any? Like, have there ever?
Aside from Cobb Vanth taking Boba Fett's armor, I don't believe so, but I don't know for certain.
Yeah, because if there's like no mentions of Mandalorians and everything, then
I mean, not like it really matters. The books and comics are being ignored, anyways.
well, there's that, yeah. But what I mean is that if there if there's like no mentions or anything whatsoever, like if they're even around or anything, then they probably might just, I don't know, just kill them off and have none of them alive by the time the First Order
I mean,
plays
I'm
the
sure
power.
what they'll do is say that, you know, they may or may not be working with the resistance, but they are attacking the First Order.
Could be. So the sources that mention Mandalorians are Bloodline and Rise of Skywalker Junior novelization.
And something that needs to be rectified in the future, although I think it's really getting annoying, is like Grogu needs to do more than just stand around occasionally using the Force and being cute, because this is getting really annoying.
This is why he should have stayed with Luke. Oh,
Yeah, I
Christ.
mean, I think the shtick was already played out by season 2. I mean, at the very least, I can say he has gotten to a point of becoming more independent. Like we see him doing more stuff away from Din Djarin. I mean, he breaks up the fight between Wolf
But
and
Bisla.
Vizsla on his own, and Din Djarin even brings up the fact that I didn't teach him that. Now, my hope would be, I mean, I think it would have been cool if Din Djarin died in this season, and then that leaves Grogu all by himself. But that's not going to happen. And
no.
based on what we see at the end of this season, him and Grogu are going to be basically being a duo taking on New Republic missions. So maybe season 4 will finally bring me the Mandalorian show I was promised all the way back in pre-season 1.
Or
Even though
maybe,
this is the season that we should have had it.
or maybe, just maybe, the Ahsoka show could turn into a Mandalorian 3 point something something something.
Oh God! Basically,
I very much doubt it.
I mean,
That is a rebel sequel through and through.
Like, for example, what if Ahsoka suddenly searches for Din Djarin asking his help with fight against Thrawn or something?
God. Christ. I mean, don't we already have enough sequel baiting in these Disney Star Wars shows? Like, aren't they doing like a sequel bait after sequel bait in almost every one of these shows?
What do you think?
I mean, I wouldn't call it a sequel bait.
More like a setting up another TV show, like setting up. That's what I mean. Like basically them just ending or just leaving their like hints or setups to another Disney Star Wars show that's gonna come out later. That's what I mean.
Well, I mean, considering the fact that these are being released in basically chronological order, it does make sense for the events of one series to play into the events of the next and then just have that keep going on. You know, TCW didn't do that. That just had one-offs for like every fucking arc.
If Ahsoka show turns into Mandalorian season 3.5, I'm quitting. I can't do
I
this.
would say, actually, yeah, 3 point, yeah. Yeah,
that's
Boba
just
Fett
what-
was 2.5. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But because I mean, we know Dave Filoni is getting a movie,
Mm.
and I don't remember if it was confirmed, but but yeah, but yeah, damn it, I don't remember if this was confirmed. But his movie basically being the finale to the Mandoverse,
His
what
second
all of
movie.
these shows are leading to.
Yeah. Isn't that movie supposed to be about Thrawn?
I don't remember what was said at Celebration.
Oh, and can we also talk about the fact that they never shows his face this whole season? That's weird.
Not weird. It's more like pretty much he showed once in season 2. He can't do it again. Otherwise, he's gonna risk having more bad shit with the Mandalorians.
I heard that Pedro Pascal wasn't in the set physically.
Really?
That wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, didn't he do that before in seasons 1 and 2? Where basically,
Yeah, he did that a few times.
Yeah.
He wasn't at all, which is why his face wasn't there in the season. That's what I'm saying.
Which can I just say really rubs me the wrong way. It's like you cast an actor who, is a live action actor. We hear his voice. We have a guy in a suit, but it's not played by him. Ugh.
That does. Then again, I don't think. Then again, I'll give a credit to the Mandalorian. At least it keeping Din Djarin with the helmet for like what 95% of the time. At least makes more. At least they do that well compared to a certain other science fiction TV show that does the complete polar opposite and has the supposedly kind of mysterious armored fighter showing it almost always, even not having the armor. The Django knows what show I'm referencing.
Oh, yes, please, Halo Lord. Keep talking about Halo when we're talking about Star Wars.
God.
Yeah, this is not State of Halo, man.
Yeah, I know that, but what I'm saying is that at least this show actually has decency of, hey, at least in the Djarin, yeah, with the mask, he at least like it makes it more impactful when he actually removes his helmet
Yeah.
in those few
I mean,
times.
don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining that he doesn't remove his mask. I mean, quite frankly, I wish more fucking live action stuff would do that. Like the MC fucking U. But the fact that it's not Pedro Pascal in the outfit, like even if we don't see his face, the fact that he's not in the outfit, there's just a disconnect for me with that.
We do have to see the behind the scenes of season 3 to fully confirm he actually was using the outfit or not. If he wasn't, then yeah, definitely a problem.
I believe that was confirmed. I can't say for certain.
Don't know about that. I do have this this magazine that's apparently the ultimate guide to the Mandalorian that even has the first look to season 3. And there is one part that says that Pedro Pascal said that in season 3 fans may wonder who will be protecting who when it comes to Grogu. I need to check if there's some other stuff saying that if Pedro Pascal was going to be here or not. So give me a minute.
Well, regardless, we do know for a fact that throughout the show there have been episodes where he wasn't in the suit, and again, it rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Indeed.
I mean, who knows? At some point, people will just get his voice license and use AI, and he doesn't need to, actually participate in any shape or form.
I hate the fact that that's an actual possibility.
Yeah, it is. It definitely can be scary.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yep, indeed.
But
Indeed.
I guess I'll also say this. We see Coruscant again, and my God, it looked fucking gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. Coruscant looked really goddamn good.
We saw Coruscant in Andor, and that was I mean, the whole aesthetic of Andor was muted colors, really grimy look to Star Wars. So Coruscant still looked good in there. I mean, the special effects in Andor were awesome, especially when you compare them to some of the other Disney Plus Star Wars shows. But
It also
you know,
appeared in Rogue One short sequence, but yeah,
yeah. But here though, it's like pulled like straight out of the fucking movies. It's like
yeah, and
this looks so fucking good.
it doesn't look horrendous like it was in Obi-Wan Kenobi
Mhm.
volume.
There's
Yeah,
that.
I mean, Mandalorian has an actual budget, unlike Kenobi, which
Wow.
had no budget.
Oh, don't forget Book of Boba Fett, where 4 of the episodes were like just stuck in Tatooine.
And the
then-
Power Rangers.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at least
but-
I can say this about this season of Mando compared to Book of Boba Fett. It wasn't visually boring.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
granted, it's not like being on Tatooine all the time is necessarily inherently boring, but the way it looks within the volume leaves a lot to be desired. So seeing that as much as we did in that fucking show, it's like I don't want to go to Tatooine again for a long time. Long time.
There's that. But by the way, reading the magazine with the season 3 preview, Pedro Pascal's like saying multiple like quotes and stuff, like how in season 3, like Mando may become a leader in season 3, but he's reluctant to do so. Which I don't remember if we saw that in. Did we see that in this season? I don't remember that.
No. I mean, granted, he has never come across as the leader type. Now, granted, you know, even those who aren't interested in leadership can become leaders, but he's always struck me as the type of guy who just basically does whatever.
The full quote basically says if he's stepping into a leadership position, he's reluctant to do so. I don't think that there's anything more interesting than a character being forced into discovering what they're capable of and who they are. That part's been really, really fun. Also, from my point of view, there's so many searchable ways to find the tonality of that. I just try to achieve the subtleties of that kind of character development. That's basically what Pedro Pascal said
Yeah.
in regards to Mandalorian. Well,
But
in
then,
show.
let's see, since, Gideon is removed, conflict between Mandalorians are gone, like, what do you think will happen with season 4 then? Like,
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, I don't know. Like, unless they make it a setup for the fucking inevitable Tron conflict.
I mean, this feels like an ending, the episode.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Mandalorians come together, Gideon is finished.
What more can they do? You know.
Yeah, but
Honestly, yeah.
like famous people, like one wise man once said, profit is way more important than artistic integrity. So who knows?
Who said that?
I don't know. Someone said that.
That's something. Okay. I haven't had much in regards to. I don't see anything in this magazine that says that Pedro was actually in the suit or anything like that. So we'll have to wait until Disney releases the behind the scenes videos, if they even do it. I mean, I know they did that. Oh, actually, okay, there is actually one thing. So apparently this one part says that Pedro Pascal, who plays the Mandalorian, has said that he prefers keeping his helmet on in his scenes because, do you see how good I look in that outfit head to toe?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to look forward to Ahsoka for future Star Wars television developments.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see.
That
though.
and Skeleton Crew.
What is that? I gotta search for that.
Skeleton Crew, isn't that the crew from Rebels?
No, that was the Ghost
Ghost.
Crew. The Skeleton Crew is, well, a new group. It's
That I never heard of.
show that's going to be I want to say geared more towards a younger audience. Like the main character, or a lot of the main characters are going to be kids or preteens.
Apparently, it says it's a flashback by an adult Clone Wars character. And I'm reading this here in the magazine. I just found this coincidentally. Yeah, speaking of the Skeleton Crew. So, yeah, this movie something. Apparently, when is Skeleton Crew taking place
9
chronologically?
ABY.
Sometime after this season of Mando.
Man,
Like it's
what?
going to be in the Mandoverse.
I mean,
What?
yeah, they seriously need to move from this circa 9 ABY nonsense and,
Yeah, why
indicate-
not? Yeah, why not advance it at least 1 year, 2 years? I mean, they still got time. I mean, the only other source that already like the other year that already has like something established is Podem and Freefall in 18 ABY. So they still have 9 years to do anything on that. They got plenty.
assuming they do respect the lore of the comics and novels, that is.
Well, okay, if we exclude that, then they have more than more
They
than
have
9 years.
about 25 years before Force Awakens.
There's that, yeah. So indeed, so yeah, yeah. So is there anything else you guys want to discuss?
I will say this: we get to see Zeb in live action.
Wait,
He looked great.
He's a Rebels character, a purple alien.
oh, I see, yeah, yeah, that one. For a second, I thought you meant Seth from Pokemon, and I'm like, what? That would have been something.
This is why it's good to be familiar with more Star Wars content than just a tiny pinch.
There's that.
Let's
So.
see.
I didn't ask you the Django. So what was it in the ending of season 3 that made you like actually be hopeful, even if it feels like a complete ending?
Well, it felt like it ended, and I don't know what they could do with it, but I just felt like, the ending seemed solid for me, so that I don't, maybe it could draw my interest to something completely different for what they can do. I don't know, but at least they have my interest in that aspect.
Do they have that interest for only what they do with Mandalorian or other shows?
Just for Mandalorian and, for next week with Star Wars Visions. That's about it for me.
Okay, there's that. Henson, what about you?
For what?
Basically, with how Mandalorian season 3 ended, like, are you at least interested in what to do next, for what to do with Mando, or for the other shows? Like,
I've always made it clear that even though the new canon ain't my canon, so in the end it doesn't really matter what it does. But I'm still invested enough to watch everything, so I'll keep on with the shows and movies, whatever comes out. I am interested to see what they do with Ahsoka, since that is a Rebel sequel. That'll be our proper reintroduction to Thrawn since the Rebels finale.
okay.
And we'll see what happens.
Okay.
I do think this season could have been the end of The Mandalorian. But, we'll see what they do next.
Okay, no one.
I mean, since this season baited me with, Thrawn reference and Captain Pelia, maybe I shall see what happens with Ahsoka.
Okay.
But I seriously believe this should be the end season for a series finale for the whole show. But, well, companies need money, I guess.
I believe Favreau has said that he'll keep on doing Mandalorian as long as there's interest, so we'll see.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. Indeed. So yeah. Well, any final things to mention, guys? I
I
guess
guess
not.
I'll just say this, as someone who doesn't care about Din Djarin, Din's relationship with Grogu, or whatever happens in the show in general. I didn't hate this season. Seasons 1 and 2, my issue was, oh, we have this really interesting plot of bringing this baby Yoda to a Jedi, but then we have to keep getting fucking sidetracked and don't get it resolved until the final fucking episode.
Mm.
And since we didn't have that, I honestly enjoyed this season more than the previous two.
Mm. Okay, I guess there's that. Your
Yeah.
favorite season? Which one is it? Is it season 1 or which one?
I would have to go back and rewatch the previous two seasons to get fresh perspective, but because the thing with watching those two seasons as they aired, I just wanted to get to the end goal because I didn't care about the journey. I wanted the destination. But now that I know what that destination is, I'd have to rewatch the two seasons and see if I can stomach them.
Mm. Okay, there's that. The Django?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Henson. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's really bad season overall. It's pretty solid, and I think it's no Book of Boba Fett or
Kenobi.
Kenobi levels of bad, in my opinion. But it is solid for what it is, and I think it is better than season 2. Season 1 is still probably the best of the season so far, so it's probably season 1, 3, and then 2. But that's just me.
Okay, Doan?
I think I should see how the story develops in the future, and I think, this was better than Book of Boba Fett and let's see, Kenobi. But personally, I prefer season 2. I mean, it was basically a trailer for other shows, but it was still interesting enough and more action packed than the first season, I guess.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
prefer season 2, and then 1, and then 3. And of course, the bottom of the barrel would be 2.5.
Okay, I guess there is that.
Yeah, I will say this. So far, my favorite Disney Plus Star Wars show is Andor. And that's the only one that I can consider, at least for me, really good.
Live action, you mean, right?
I mean, all we got. Oh, wait. No, yeah, Bad Batch. I do.
Yeah.
Bad Batch.
Yeah.
But, at least in terms of live action, still think Andor's the best. Well, I mean, it's not like Bad Batch, not without its issues. I think overall, the most, solid piece of storytelling is Andor so far. That's a show that knew what it was, knew what it wanted to do, was able to realize its vision without outside forces fucking it up.
Yeah.
Look at Book of Boba Fett to see what I mean, or Obi-Wan 2 to see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But, we'll see. And one thing I will say, we know that certain shows only have a finite number of seasons. The next season of Bad Batch will be its end. The next season of Andor will be its end. I hope that they don't feel a need for these Mandoverse shows to go on for as long as humanly possible. If you want to have The Mandalorian be that one show that just keeps going on, I mean, I don't think that's a good idea, but if you really need that linchpin show to go on, fair enough, I guess. All the other stuff, have those shows tell their stories. And then when those stories are done, end it. Start something new.
Yeah.
We have, we're at 9 ABY. Force Awakens isn't
34 ABY.
Yeah, 34 ABY. So we got 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, I would say, do each show of these series is a year, so that way we can just get to the sequel trilogy already. But
Yeah, it's taking too long.
It's taking too
Like
long.
it has to do 25 years worth of world building, and like who has time for that?
yeah, or at least have time skips.
They could have that, but they don't seem to want to put them. So
And I really hope Gideon is dead, but I have a feeling that he's gonna come back.
Ripley.
right now, Wikipedia lists him as dead, killed, like dead.
Unfortunately, with the franchise being the franchise it is, even when you think somebody is dead,
They always come back.
Somehow Gideon came back from the dead.
Yep.
the dead speak.
Oh God.
And I can't wait for his comeback speech to be in Fortnite.
Oh.
Gideon is a clone because mustaches. Yeah, that's a dumb theory, but God.
That will be something, yeah, indeed. As for me, favorite season from Mandalorian, Christ, that's difficult. Difficult between 1 and 2. Well, I say maybe 1, but 2 stood out to me the most because I really think that was the best that we ever saw of Boba Fett. Like actually being the most badass ever.
That's true.
Plus that ending in season 2 was really awesome, really well done. So, and not to mention Luke posted on the Jedi, that was not his episode 8 interpretation. Yeah, that definitely did put a smile on my face. So that's why it's difficult. But well, also because season 2 is fresher in my mind compared to season 1. So there's that too. So maybe for right now season 2, but I do need to rewatch them to better judge. So yeah, so 3 definitely is below those because enjoyable, but it has flaws. Book of Boba Fett, aka Mando's season 2.5. Yeah, that shit's on the bottom barrel. So,
Of course.
yeah, so there is that.
I just realized we forgot something.
What?
Mhm.
A character who was kind of sort of important, but then dropped due to outside factors.
Oh.
She was
That
making-
scene where Din Djarin asks, "Where's Cara Dune?" And just give a hand wave explanation as to why she's not present.
She was now recruited by the New Republic, I think that
And
was.
it's like, okay, getting rid of the actress, whatever. Why not recast her?
No idea.
Because it's like, from what we know, like we were supposed to get Rangers of the New Republic, and that was supposed to involve Cara Dune. But then, of course, outside shit happened. Actress gets dumped. That show gets canned. But like, could have recasted her. I mean, it's not like Gina Carano is a good actress, so replacing her would not have been that much of a problem. Actually, it probably would have been an improvement.
Money says jump, cat says how high.
So one thing that happened with Rangers of the New Republic, apparently in May 2021, Variety claims that the series has not been in active development, and months later, apparently Empire Magazine says that no scripts were written, and that some of the stuff that was planned for the TV show is going to be incorporated to the next iteration of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, makes sense. Rangers was supposed to be Favreau's other show, while Ahsoka was Filoni's show. But now that Rangers isn't happening, it does make sense to transfer that stuff. Like, I think my friend Donnie had told me this as a theory, but the New Republic guy we see here, I'm spacing on his name, but he's the one who contacts Din Djarin. I believe he was probably supposed to play a role in Rangers. But yeah, whatever. The point is, I believe they could have recasted the character and don't really lose much. I mean, yeah, you would have lost visual consistency, but it's like, does it really matter all that much with that character?
That
I
I
mean,
don't
we
know.
are talking about the same series where Kit Fisto changes appearances between episodes 2 and 3.
Who cares? Just write a novel or a comic or something.
That a comic, a novel that won't matter anyways.
What does
Yeah,
matter?
whatever. She was a nothing character anyways. Nothing of value was lost.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's pretty much the remaining stuff I had to say.
Okay. Well, in that case, this is the end of the live stream. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys on the next State of Star Wars video when that comes out. Bye bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Sayonara.